I'm not going to claim this is like a podcast because the whole idea of a podcast just kind of gets at me because there's so many of them. But I think it's valuable for just two people to talk. And normally, like if we were to meet in person, but we live in different parts of the states. So I think this is more of just a conversation between you and me than it is podcast.
I love that. That's a great format. And I prefer, even with the podcasts I listen to drop in on somebody's conversation more than anything that's more formally produced. So this is
Yeah.
great.
I thought about doing the like air horns, the like bow, 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 and
You
all
need a
of the
sound
fun
effect
stuff.
board. Yeah,
Yeah,
that we can both drop in sound effects. That would be
that's right. Yeah.
great.
Well, I guess we'll just get started. Why don't you just kind of talk about who you are, what you do, why you do what you do?
Okay, yeah, I'm Tatum Brandt. I run a branding studio that serves primarily the fitness and wellness community. So we specialize in, branding primarily from strategy and messaging and personality, all the way to a visual identity, which is probably what you think of when you hear brand, like logo, color palette, typography. And then to roll out, we do a lot of work with web design and digital execution because, I mean, these days, so often brand exists on the web. So that's really what we focus on. I post sometimes about brand content in the, fitness world
Yeah.
from my personal social media, which the goal of that is to feed back into the business, which it's done that a little bit. So that's an interesting journey too. So
Yeah,
that's
I think
primarily what I do.
well, I think just what you laid out there about, you've kind of got the formal business side, which is like forerunner for me. But then
Right.
there's like who you are as a person and what you care about. And it's like I think if people that want to work with you like see, hey, you care about the things you're doing, you genuinely want to help people, and they just kind of get to know you as a person, it is a funnel that kind of feeds to the business. So I think that's something that
Yeah.
other companies, like if they take that seriously, and some are, like a lot of companies are, but if you take that seriously, like it's actually a pipeline to generate leads or anything like that.
Yeah, I think we've seen a lot more, especially in fitness and wellness. I think you see it like
Sure.
founder-led brand marketing is starting to really become huge because, I mean, as people, we like to engage with other people and we like to follow along with stories. And so even businesses or like massive companies that tend to be more faceless will still have, like I always give the example of Patagonia. The founder of Patagonia, Yvon Chouinard, most people probably are not familiar with his name, but like his entire origin story like bleeds into the ethos and brand values of everything that Patagonia is. So I think it's important as the founder to like make sure that you have some direct influence on like brand core values and how you go about marketing. But especially in today's day and age, like if your company isn't Patagonia right now, like it's often easier to show up a little bit as yourself and start to kind of engage with the community. And I think it also helps you drive company marketing efforts. If you're
Yeah.
kind of in the world figuring out what works for marketing and what like you're actively talking to and commenting or DMing with your like core clients or consumers, you start to
Yeah.
get a better pulse on like how you want to drive the ship of your business.
Yeah, oh man, everything. I mean, we could take everything you just said in so many directions, but it's like it's so true that especially for smaller, even smaller companies, big companies too, but for smaller companies, it's like you got into business for a reason. You do what you do for a reason, and you have a certain set of values and vision and mission that you can communicate through your brand and through the content you create for your brand. So if you're doing that personally, I mean, people, especially consumers, are very, I think they can see through when they're just trying to be sold something.
Yeah.
But if you're really authentic on who you are and what you care about, what you stand for, Patagonia is a great example of like, hey, who he is as a founder, what he cares about, and what the things that they produce and create, that brand that they have, that is all in line. And so I think that is definitely something that just about any company should take seriously. We're working with a company right now that everything that they care about mission, vision, values wise resonates with us a lot. And
Yep.
all we're trying to do is create content that communicates that authentically. And
Yeah.
so I think that's just something that businesses should take seriously.
And I think too, I mean, that's where so many founders struggle with marketing their business because when you get them alone in a room or they're talking to somebody for 30 minutes, they're so passionate about what they're doing, especially if it's tied to impact, with like fitness or even faith-based companies, it tends to be
Sure.
tied to some deeper vision and impact. And so they can sell anybody anything if they're sitting down with them for 30 minutes, but that's not typically how marketing works. And so when they go to like try to translate that to maybe a faceless business, it turns into a static,
Right.
social media post with just a graphic that grabs nobody. And so being able to somehow diffuse like what is that kind of spark that the founder has and translate it into brand marketing is tricky. And that's kind of the key that everyone's trying to crack now, which I think you guys are great at that with video. Video is a great way to say, hey, how can we condense and kind of
Sure.
capture this vibe and energy and, send it out in quick bites to consumers?
Yeah, no, I appreciate the compliment for sure. We definitely aim to do that. But I would even think like with your expertise being more in kind of brand and like developing brand voice and tone and colors and everything, like I would actually say, especially in the early phases of a business, that is, I would say, mission critical more before they start working with people like us who are trying to communicate who they are. Like so much of developing that brand and their identity is this type of stuff you do, and I think that's critical.
It really is, especially often I think some people that we work with say, "Oh, we realize we needed this work with establishing our tone of voice, who we are not, because we went to like outsource to a marketing agency and they were giving us stuff that we could see how it would work. Like this is viral type content or it's brand building content. It might get us leads, but it is completely unaligned or misaligned with our like core values. It might be
Right.
clickbaity content that we
Right.
just don't want to produce. And we just realized, oh, we need a system for this. We need kind of a framework. Or as a company grows, Nike kind of is a prime example. You see them kind of lose some of the core, personality that got them the following as they tend to go more and more corporate and widespread. So if you can start at the beginning and say, hey, we know you know how to translate your personality, but as you start outsourcing some of these pieces, or you start getting into platforms that you're not as familiar with, you can start to kind of lose your personality or even like veer from your core values, which is, of course, the ultimate thing that you don't want to do. So that's where focusing on, okay, we will nail down mission, vision, values, but also what is your brand personality? How does it differentiate from you as a person? How is it similar to you as a person? And what kind of frameworks can we build around it so that you can effectively communicate that in like, hey, here's key phrases we use, key words that we use, tone of voice in emails and marketing communication. Like it all feels like the same experience when you're interacting with a video you see online or you're speaking to us like in customer support directly.
Yeah, man, all that is exactly right, and it's so the businesses that understand that and that implement that the right way, I think, are getting a step ahead of the businesses that have just kind of been the traditional. Let me have my website more for information, and with some static images that are what's the word? They're like open source, so they're not even about who they are. It's just kind of like clinical. I think the businesses that are doing a lot of the things that you really help businesses do, especially in the fitness world, I think are getting that leg up. And really, what they're doing is it's like this is actually something that took me some time to I think really understand is like you can serve a specific audience. That audience can be niche and is actually larger than you probably think that it is, even though that's niche.
Yeah.
But you actually can capture more people in that niche audience than if you just had this blanket umbrella of anybody that wears T-shirts. I'm going to target those people. It's like that's not
Yeah.
gonna work. And so I think the work you do really, I think, can kind of speak to why those things are important.
And that comes to like when you really understand a subculture, like in a niche is really just a subculture. Like
Right.
when you interact with content or ads personally that you feel like, "Oh, you understand me," or you see a meme that is so specific to this niche community of like, trail running or something that you're involved in, you're just bought in right out of the gate and you're kind of loyal to this brand because I always, tell the people that we work with the reason why people have buy or, engage with brands over the years has really shifted. We're no
Hmm.
longer in kind of, the era of just, you're selling like the features and the benefits of the thing because things are so saturated. And you're
Hmm.
even past like the Mad Men marketing era of experiential marketing, like step into our car and you're going to feel like
Hmm.
this. It's almost into more like people engage with brands that they can personally say, hey, I'm going to put this sticker on my Nalgene because I resonate with this brand. Or it's like value and virtue signaling. Like, I'm the type
Exactly.
of person who buys Patagonia or who buys Nike. And so, in order to market in that way, you kind of have to really understand the subculture that you're marketing to. And I say, sometimes we work with gyms that are, hey, our target demo is anyone from 19 to 95. But there's
Hmm.
probably buckets within that target demo that are coming to you, maybe not from a specific demographic, but maybe from a specific psychographic. Like they've all experienced this, problem, or are, the type of person who wants to pursue the 1% better. Or like you can find little areas to market to, even if your target clientele looks drastically different. And I think those are the important exercises to go through as a business owner to be like, how do I speak directly to my people, even if the audience is super broad? How can I go narrow with certain messaging?
Yeah, that's man, everything. Gosh, so good. Like I'll be honest. We're actually going through that as a business right now. Is like we have a product that technically can serve anybody,
Mm-hmm.
and we always struggled with how to get that in front of the right person. Well, now, like yes, somebody could come to our door and maybe they're not the ideal client profile that we're aiming for, but we're doing our own kind of focused. I would say, marketing initiatives towards specific ICPs that have those specific
Nice.
problems that video can solve, but it's messaged and packaged in a way that that person, that ICP, that we've delved into that psychographic of like we're actually messaging to their specific pain point. Like, let's
Yeah.
say, for example, let's say I'm trying to think of a good one here. Let's say, okay, I played tennis in college. All right, so if I said that I had a specific type of grip that goes around a tennis racket that wasn't too tacky, so it didn't stick to my hand when I was hitting my forehand or my backhand, but it wasn't too less tacky so that the racket
Mm-hmm.
would move when I would accelerate through a shot. Um, but I was messaging to the specific tennis player at that competitive level who knew the difference and the nuance. I would probably sell that product to that person way more than if I just said, "Hey, anybody that
Yep.
plays tennis, this grip's going to be good for you."
And that's where you can scale that too. So if, okay, you got that specific, competitive tennis player who's going to know the nuances of that, could we get
Hmm.
into that with people who sell product based or sometimes like upper level coaching within fitness? Then all of a sudden you can say, okay, well, we can market to Gen Pop, but there's an education cycle that
A
needs to
hundred
happen
percent, hundred
about the
percent.
gear before we get there. So, okay, now we're going to start rolling out, and we've got our, competitive athlete line of marketing and messaging. Now let's start to roll out educational resources. Maybe we have a YouTube series. That's where we can get into some of those. Okay, it's going to be long term. We're going to have like maybe an email series with a landing page that we're throwing people on to get into our system, but we're going to start to educate about, hey, do you experience this when you play with your friends over the weekend? Here's actually what this is. And that's the cool thing too about really understanding your target clientele. Because if you understand the people here who are like ready to buy and primed to buy, then you can start, once you crack that, you can kind of expand it out a little bit too.
Yeah, 100%. We're currently doing that with one of our clients. They're an organization in Dallas, Texas called Athletes United. I think we kind of roughly talked about
Yeah.
that a little bit when we first talked. But like we had a specific initiative that was, a one-time event that they were trying to do fundraising for. Well, we got some content in the world aimed towards a specific demographic. We got some data back of how successful that was. Well, now what we're doing is we're taking that same ICP and instead of doing a time-based dinner event to raise money, we're now moving it to memberships. So messaging with video content about what the value of Athletes United is, but towards the membership and how they can do the continual support outside of just that one specific event. I think that's exactly what you just talked about, taking it in one instance and then expanding it in another, but to the same niche audience that has the same problem or opportunity that they want to leap on. It's just trying to get them to do a different thing.
And I think that's so cool. And that also brings up, I think, what we tend to forget when we're forming marketing strategies sometimes is how crucial or like important storytelling can be when you're marketing. And especially with an organization like Athletes United, I would imagine there's a lot of like storytelling, testimonials. I have a friend who does marketing for a nonprofit, and all of their campaigns to fundraise are so rooted in, let's tell the stories of who these people have helped and really bring you in on their journey. And so I think that's important, whether you're, more of a nonprofit or impact driven brand, or if you're just selling product. If you can kind of get people to participate in a story. One of my clients just sells fitness coaching, but her coaching is more high ticket, so the buying cycle is just so long for when people decide to buy. So one thing that we're trialing is her sharing specific, not just testimonials, but like video formatted stories of people who say, hey, I was in this place and I didn't think that I could train for my first, marathon while working the night shift. But then by getting this type of programming and working with these coaches, I was able to do it. I wish I had done this sooner, like addressing super specific pain points along that user journey and the sales process with a story. I think is often so much easier for us to consume than just saying, hey, if you work the night shift, you can actually train for the marathon you want to train for. Like, we're blocking that out immediately. Like, to your point of, we're just savvier now. We're blocking out that ad, marketing.
You're so right. And I do think there is a place in the digital marketing world to be like more billboardish. We do X, we solve X problem.
Yeah.
I think there is a place for that. But to your point on storytelling, I think when people move out of that becoming of just aware of who you are to actually becoming part of, I'll use this in quotations, the cult that you are, that's kind of like, it's kind of like cult culture, right? Is so much of that on getting someone to commit to join your brand, to join your values is storytelling, because storytelling like fundamentally resonates with every single human being on this earth. And if you can work with someone who knows how to tell a story, or you may even be able to tell a story yourself. I mean, you can do it on your phone, on TikTok. If you understand some basic storytelling elements, you can do some stuff yourself. But if you can really tell good stories, that will move the needle so much more on getting people over that hump of like, oh, I kind of want to join in on what you're doing, to like becoming almost like an advocate for your brand and for what you do.
Exactly. And I think you're right. I mean, the billboard type advertisement is still so critical because our brains are designed to like survive, thrive, and conserve calories. We're constantly taking in information that we have to just decide what we're scrolling past and what we want to toss and what's important to us. And so I think that's kind of I always break up brand personality building and like effective brand messaging into kind of like a pie chart. There's the personality side, the storytelling side, the thing that kind of makes you rich. And then there's the strategy side. Like, you still have to be able to communicate what you do in a sentence, in a couple words. Because if you can't do that, especially if somebody has like watched a story and is now on your website, if you don't have a super clear, here's a 1, 2, 3, how to start working with us, then like they're probably going to bounce, even if they really engaged with the story you have. So you definitely have to have both things working at the same time, in different ways.
Yeah, for sure. Totally with you. From your perspective, like, let's do like I don't know if role playing is the right word, but let's say you've got a client and this is like the things we're talking about is new territory for them. They're looking to work with somebody. They don't exactly know what you need. What are something that you would tell like a business or a marketing professional or somebody who's looking to delve into like actually taking the things we're talking about serious? Like, what are some of the things they need to think about as they get started, either themselves or working with somebody like you or me?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think especially as business owners, you can be so overwhelmed with like, okay, what is the next thing that I want to focus on?
Yeah.
I think doing a quick, where I usually start on like a quick clarity call with a client is, hey, what are your goals this year?
Yeah.
What are you working towards? And then what are the things that are hindering you from getting there? Because sometimes if the goal is to have like a product that works or to like, verify that this is, a viable product so you can then go like raise funding. I don't know. Maybe it's not time to dive into branding and marketing that product just yet. But if you say, hey, we've got this incredible thing, we're not getting enough sales here, or we're getting enough sales, but we're looking to grow the team, and whatever that is, then we can start talking about, okay, what is your marketing strategy like? Where are you getting the majority of your leads or your customers from? What would you like that to look like? Is it all word of mouth and you're worried about that drying up? Do you have anything in place to incentivize referrals? And then you can start kind of going deeper and saying, okay, you're getting a lot of these leads. How do you personally feel about the company culture and about what you're marketing and messaging? And then you can get into some of that personality and story building. Or do you have a brand that you feel like people can like engage with and become advocates of? Or are they just going to buy one time and say, hey, this was great, and then they're gone? So that's, I think I always start with what are the goals and then what are the challenges, because that kind of just reveals itself in what you need to focus on next.
Yeah, definitely. That's exactly what I was thinking too. In our company's history, we would typically get someone who has their product or service. They think they know what they need with video, and then they ask us to
Yeah.
make it, and then we make it and we turn it over, and it doesn't really, we don't know if it works, right? So
Yeah.
they think they need a video, but they really don't. And so like what we've started to do, so like an ideal situation for us would be the same type of starting point. What are your business goals, or what problem are you trying to solve? Is
Hmm.
your sales team, let's give an example. Let's say, is your sales team over stretched thin, trying to qualify the leads that are coming in, and they're wasting
Yeah.
a lot of time selling to people who aren't ready to purchase? Could
Hmm.
we create a system that's video driven that actually enables your sales team to reach out to the right people, the qualified leads?
Yep.
Is that what we're really talking about? So we're really more strategizing around solving that problem rather than just creating a video for video's sake. I made this joke with somebody the other day, is like, now I'm at the point with our business where I'm trying to convince people not to do video
Isn't
unless
that
they
crazy?
really need it. Yeah.
Because sometimes I'll get the exact same thing. People say, I need a logo, like I need a new logo,
Mhm.
or but then in the ideal situation, I had a call with somebody the other day who said I was running Yelp ads to my website, and I noticed I was getting a ton of clicks over, but not a lot of them were converting. First, is this number that are converting, is that the right metric? No, it's super low. Okay, what can we do on that page to optimize the website and increase conversions? And now we have a starting point instead of just, hey, let's build a website because, oh, I don't really like how it looks and I don't really resonate with it. We kind of got to dig deeper because, in the long run, you could spend your money on so many things, but it's kind of got to move the needle forward to justify it, to your point. And I think, as business owners, like serving other business owners, we're doing our clients a service to kind of go one step further and say, wait, do you really need this? Instead of you telling me to push the pixels, let me diagnose a little bit so I can make sure that the pixels I'm pushing actually help your business.
Yeah, for sure. And that's what I'd say last year, me and my business partner, Booba, who I know you know, we kind of came to the realization of, like, as we were developing what the videos looked and felt like, and where our suggestion of where they should be and what they're trying to do, we're really doing agency level stuff in these meetings to determine what the video looks like. And we're like, well, why don't we
Yeah.
just get ahead of that? Because
Hmm.
what it's really given us opportunity to do is actually help our clients more than
Yeah.
just providing them with the video. And that Athletes United is a great example. We just used to do production for them, and they would use our videos for their dinner, but they didn't really have the back end things to know if it was working or not. But then as we grew and learned these different things, we implemented some of that for them, and it's like all of a sudden it's like, this is like a huge tool for them that is helping them reach their goal. And we haven't done that much more. We've just kind of repackaged what it is that we're
Yeah.
doing. And so that's already, it's been validation for me personally, because it's like, it's one of those where it's like, I didn't really charge for it because I wanted to see it work before
Sure.
somebody reaches out to me and I'm like, oh yeah, this is definitely going to work. But now it's like, I
Yeah.
have the case study and the use case to say, this is going to work if we actually do it this way. And it's actually helping you.
And that's the cool thing too about this type of work is that some marketers, that I consume some of their content, they refer to it as world building. Like
Yeah.
start to look at your business and your brand as like, okay, pretend it's a TV show. Like what are the key characters that come back? What's the overall genre of the show? What's the storyline, the through line? Then you can start creating like marketing content and assets and things around it and say, okay, so for this season, this campaign, in the show, here's kind of what we're doing and here's the goal for the end of it. And here's the narrative we can bring people through. And you kind of bring people along for the ride, of your marketing journey instead of a bunch of one-off videos that you're throwing at them hoping that they'll buy. You can say, hey, let's think strategically. What do we want this journey to look like over a year, which I think is an important exercise for business owners to do too, to say, what's the kind of world that I'm building, with my brand, and what do people feel when they interact inside of it?
Yeah, 100%. We've got a company that we're working with right now, done content for them for several years. But what we got to the core of with their problem is that it's a construction company, and they landed a 20-year contract. And so they have to, it's recruitment. They really need people, specific jobs that resonate with their company's brand and their brand values, and want to join them long term. And so this year, what we're doing, we're creating a whole content package that's more story driven. But then what we're going to do is set up some more of the back end, like tech stack things of like, okay, well, let's build a really video driven landing page that tells a story that is messaging to the people that want to work for you in that specific job. And they want to work for you because they know they can trust you as a company and you're not going to take advantage of them.
Yeah.
And let's communicate that clearly on a landing page using video as a tool to do that. And let's see how that goes. Let's see if that starts driving it's kind of qualified leads, but it's actual people into your door that want to work with you and you want them to work for you. Like that's how we're starting to think about it. And I think so much of what you do with brand and user experience, so much of tying all of that together is a lot of, I think, what we're talking about so that it's successful.
Yeah, because in creating that landing page, if the company that you're doing that landing page for, the construction company, isn't clear on who they are or the type of company culture, like the type of people that they want in their door, like that landing page would be so much more difficult. Like you're going to have to then go back and say, okay, we got to do some foundational brand exercises to even create this thing that's going to make your life easier. So that's where so many businesses, if you start with the foundations, just have on paper and be super clear, because you always think that you know things inside of your head, but get it all listed out with some, we are this, we are not this. We want this type of thing. Then all of a sudden, all the other marketing decisions become so much easier because you know who you are as a foundation.
Yeah, totally, totally. And I think that applies to just about any business. Like anybody, all of that applies to whatever business world you're in, whatever industry, whatever niche, whatever you're in. I think those sort of foundational things, as you're starting to move into doing more of the things we're talking about, are like so critical. It's so critical. I guess I've got just a couple more questions. I think about the creative process of when we're like working with a company. Kind of maybe take through like your creative process, like if you starting from step one, like how you go about it when you do what you do.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm super interested to kind of hear what your creative process is too.
Yeah.
We always start with like really understanding the client. Typically it's in an interview session. So if we're working on a brand project, for example, they've filled out some questionnaires beforehand, but really we hop on an interview and we say, hey, we're going to ask you the same question 5 different ways within an attempt to pull all of the information out of your brain and start asking questions to first like really clarify that we fully understand their business and their offer structure. Like we could then go sell their product if we needed to. But then the next thing is to start kind of asking the questions of like, okay, drop yourself in the mind of your client or consumer and then speak this way, or understanding themselves as the founder and their personality and going a little bit deeper. So I think what's really fun on those calls is getting some of the like deep stories of here's why I started this business. I saw this problem. Sometimes these are things that often we didn't find communicated in any of our research on any of their website or marketing materials. And all of a sudden there's this incredible story that comes forward that we're like, that's it, that's what we
Yeah.
need to build the brand around.
Yeah.
So that's super fun. Typically we take it into some exercises where we do some work to kind of figure out what's your tone of voice and personality. Like, are we creating a really vibrant, maybe irreverent brand, or is it going to be more scientific and clinical? Because there's room for both in the same industry, but we got to understand what we're doing here. So we start digging into some of that work and saying, sometimes we'll use what's called the chaos chart. I don't know if you're familiar with that from
No.
Dungeons and Dragons. So
Oh
it's
yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I know what you're talking about. Yeah, like
yeah,
chaotic evil, chaotic good. You talking about that?
exactly.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah.
And so typically we say, hey, this is what, in the game Dungeons and Dragons people use to understand how their character will move throughout the game and make decisions. We think that's perfect for brands moving through the world and making decisions in marketing. So like, are you chaotic good? Are you chaotic evil, like
Hmm.
a liquid death or a pit viper,
Yeah.
like very
Yeah.
irreverent? Or are you much more clinical and scientific and maybe a lawful good, like a headspace or an AG1? So we start to
Hmm.
kind of plot those points, and that reveals a lot of the creative where we can then start mood boarding. So we like take that full process to fully understand before we dive into creative, because we used to dive straight into creative and like sometimes we're on the same page, but often we're not.
Hmm.
And then you're
Hmm.
doing a lot of work when you could have just saved so much time by having something strategic up front.
Yeah, totally, totally with you. We were involved on like a community-wide project that happened from basically October through like it literally just ended
Oh,
maybe a week
wow.
or so ago.
Yeah.
And everything you just talked about, this was a blank canvas. Like this was a community initiative. Like polling was open for 4 weeks, and we created an entire brand, content package, everything around that. And we did exactly what you talked about. Like what is the mood? What is the tone? What do we want it
Yeah.
to feel like? And we had like a 2 week creative war room with all of the different agencies that participated. And we went the
Nice.
whole gamut on like, do we want it to feel like fun, bubbly, or do we want it to feel kind of edgy? Or
Yeah.
like, are we trying to be risky or safe? And like, we had those discussions and used words and threw up different color palettes. And so, yeah, I think on the brand side, especially for what you do, so much of that is super critical. I think for us, at least traditionally, a lot of times the companies we work with already have a pretty solidified who they are, what their
Yeah.
product offering is. They're trying to communicate that out in the world and are maybe trying to find the best way to get that messaging out through the video format. And so for us, a lot of times if the company has it, if it doesn't have it, we can help them do a lot of the sort of front end branding side of stuff. But if they already know who they are and who they're aiming for, we start to think it more in visual, I would say from a visual perspective. So like, what type of camera movements are we doing?
Ooh, yeah.
What type of lighting are we doing? What types of set design are we doing? What type of reaction or emotion do we want the talent to have? Like so much of what we do is thinking about that visually and putting all those pieces into place. And sometimes that can be very straightforward. It can just be like an interview testimonial, and it's just the camera, it's on a tripod, and it's lit well. It could be that. But if it's something where like we just did a project last year where it was ads for a bank talking about their service, but they had a very specific ICP that they were trying to reach. And what that ICP, the research that we were able to get for that, what that ICP cared about, the way that we designed the videos was there's a lot more fluid motion. The people were a lot more a lot more eccentric, and
Yeah.
like it was a lot brighter, maybe not as contrasty. And so like for us, when we think about creative, we kind of go down that realm when it actually comes to creating the product. But when I
Yep.
think, but now with the things you're talking about, like we've had businesses we're working with where now we're like, you don't have the messaging, the color palette, you don't even have a brand guide that informs the decision making of what our
Yeah.
graphics look like on the video. It's like we need to start there before we get here.
Yeah. And such a cool point too, because I we when we dive into the visual, like creative side of things after we get through the strategic part, that's where we start to mood board a little bit with the client
Yeah.
and say some of those decisions that you might consume video content or creative content and not really understand, like you subconsciously are absorbing these things, like, oh, interesting, we recently had a brand project that used a lot of like motion blur and a lot of the
Mm,
photography, but with some film grain. So
mm,
it had this feeling of something that was very high tech, but had kind of like an analog human feel to it, because
yeah.
that was kind of the contrast that the brand was trying to ride. And it's fun to start throwing those things up and saying, how can we, all the concepts that we came up with in the strategy phase, how do we communicate those visually in more abstract ways that aren't going to like bang you over the head and be as obvious, but be like subtle and like give kind of a personality throughout, which is where it gets really fun. And I'm sure the strategy part is fun in its own way, but when you get to dive into the visual side of things, that's where you're like, no, trust me on this one. Like you're going to see this come to life and it's going to be so cool.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I think about two examples. This one commercial, we didn't make it, but it's one that I like. I think it's the best commercial that I have ever seen,
Oh, I'm
and it
interested.
was Casamigos, the tequila, when they
Mm-hmm.
did the people who made it, the clapping, and it was like made by hand. The
Yeah.
way that that entire commercial was structured, everything about it was perfection. It was perfection. And for a brand like that, it communicated exactly who they were in such
Mm-hmm.
a really interesting visual way, that I think probably really resonated. Like I obviously don't know if how successful it was or
Sure.
wasn't, but I could almost guarantee you that it really got people to buy into their brand. Now, on the opposite end of that spectrum, we're working with a local bank, and one of the things that's like a core value of who they are is their relationship with the customer on a personal level. Like
Interesting.
if I'm a business, they're my bank, I can call that person that works at that bank's cell phone and they can help me.
Hey
It's
Sherry, how
not
you doing? Yeah.
exactly, it's not I'm getting a call service. Like,
Mhm.
so the whole thread that we took was this word of relationship. And
Yeah.
so they kind of had in their mind, well, let's bring them into the bank. Let's let them talk about the relationship. And I got to give Booba credit. He's like, we're not doing that. What we're actually going to do, because this matters, we're going to go see them in their world. We're going
Ooh,
to
that's
go
good.
have them stand where they're at where they work every day and talk about you rather than them
Yeah.
come to the bank.
And
And
that's so smart because that's the concept that you get with the like State Farm commercials where they're like,
mhm,
"Hey, we've got an app. We'll meet you right where you're at. You don't have to
mhm.
leave wherever." And so they sing the jingle and then somebody shows up right there. Like that's the concept that you can take it a little more abstract and send the message in a way that's really entertaining and engaging.
Yeah, totally. And if the business or brand has done a lot of the core pieces that you talk about, if they have all of that in place when they get to the point to where they're doing the more video content where we can kind of think about those concepts sort of more abstract and more creative that aren't so like a cookie cutter that you would see every day, like as long as we're operating within that brand voice and that messaging that's still targeting that specific client, then we can kind of think about it in a little bit different way. Like one thing we did here in town was was it was an initiative to try to give people to live, work, or play in Bowling Green. So it's to get them to move
Yeah,
here. That's really what
I
they were
think I
doing.
saw that campaign. Yeah.
Yeah, and so rather than like third person like this, we said, nope, we're going to do first person point of view and
Ooh.
showed them going through Bowling Green first person point of view. So our camera person had a helmet cam with it, this camera I'm using right now, actually in front of their face, going around playing pickleball,
I
eating at
love
one of
that.
the restaurants, and it's like we know that moved the needle way more than if we just had some politician telling you about why Bowling Green's great.
Because people could drop themselves into that situation and be like, oh, that's
Exactly.
beautiful. I want to go to Kariakis Park and hang out, you know? Yeah,
Exactly.
that's awesome.
Yeah, but yeah, that's okay. I'm sure we could talk about this kind of stuff
We could.
all,
My favorite is
all
the
day.
post Super Bowl like ad roundups where
Yeah.
people are the marketers dig in and break down like this ad worked for this reason. This one was entertaining, but no one remembers the brand name. And those are all, I think, interesting rabbit holes to dive down and be, oh yeah, that's right. That was a cool ad, but I have no idea what company was behind it, those kinds of
Yeah.
things.
Yeah. Totally. Well, I'll kind of, I guess, I think we're getting, I didn't really have like a set time limit, but I think we're getting like pushing 45 minutes. So we'll kind of close this out here because I think we've really covered the gamut of everything that I wanted to talk about. You know, the things you talk about and do and are awesome at. Like I actually just yesterday, I watched one of your videos where you were going through, I think, color theory and like the history of color
Isn't that
theory. I
cool?
was like, I'd never even thought about it that way, but
So
it's like it was so
interesting.
awesome.
That's
And so,
the fun
yeah,
part about making, content personally is you get to kind of go down these research rabbit holes. And some of these things that I just read an article and consume, and this is such cool knowledge, and I have nobody to tell. Like,
yeah,
some of my friends don't care about this information, but I can then go, kind of almost as a creative outlet, go talk about, hey, here's kind of a theory about this marketing or, something about color theory, and kind of start to share those in quick little bites. And that's, some of the fun part of the curse of social media. So,
yeah, it's so true. That's like I've started treating these type of things the same way as like basically a creative outlet. It's like if I learn something
yeah.
new, like I learned back end stuff and I want to tell people about it because I saw the work and I think it's awesome. And
Yep.
so it's like I think using this as a creative outlet to just kind of share expertise, share little tips, or maybe try to make people think about things differently. Like it's really awesome. And so I commend you for the way you do what you do because I think it's such a cool way to kind of walk through like how you think about things from your perspective for sure.
Yeah, I appreciate it. There's good and bad to social media, but the cool thing is it can open a lot of doors to connections. Like this one, we're having this
Yeah.
conversation now because we're able to be connected over the internet. And so you get to find your people that way, and that's kind of fun.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'll leave with this. All right. So um, tell me, I guess it's the last thing. What is your superpower and how does that superpower come to life in what you do every day?
Oh God, that's such a good question that I should have a better answer for. It's the curse of, the what do they say, the shoe cobbler whose children don't have shoes. You
Yeah.
do all this work for your clients that you're like, you should know this, and then you can't answer the same question
100%,
yourself.
100%,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think I think the thing that I get really excited about more broadly is when I talk to a business owner or somebody who is so passionate about what they're doing and they have this vision for it, but the way that they execute creatively, like I can see what they've got in their head and I know that I can kind of pull it out and bring it to life. That is such a fun feeling, whether that's on a more strategic level with like, hey, here's your overall tone of voice and personality, or very practically creatively with, logo marks and, cool graphic elements to really build out their brand. I think that's the fun part is being able to visualize something and bring it to life from that blank page. And that's really what I love to focus on with my clients. My motto for this year with my studio was less but better. We're focusing on building brands for our specific target clientele, like fitness and wellness. And that's the core focus. We're not going to be saying, sure, we'll do some social media management on the side, all those things that you do when you're new in business. Like, let's focus on that zone where we do have that superpower and we're more fulfilled, creatively fulfilled. in like executing on that work. So hopefully that answered your question. But that's what, how
Respect.
would you answer that question personally for Forerunner?
Yeah, I mean it's very similar. I think the only I guess caveat that I would add for us is we just have a way of getting to the core of what somebody's really trying to do. And I think what that really is like curiosity. Like it's
Yeah.
really about like what are you actually trying to do? What are we actually trying to do? You think you have a perception of what you want to do, but what are you actually trying to do? And that's what we come to realize as we've kind of grown, as our company's grown and kind of shifted how we think about what we do is like we just know how to bring that stuff to life. It's because we actually know what you're trying to do, what you actually care about. And if you can
Yeah.
trust us to accomplish that, it will work. You just have to give up a little bit of what you think you need and let us kind of drive that ship just because that's our superpower. And so I think it's
I love
parallel,
that.
very parallel to what you're talking about, just kind of in a little bit of a different way.
I love that. And the word curiosity is so perfect. I think
Mhm.
that's really the undertone of everything I do, especially on, you hop on a call or an intro call with somebody and you just get so excited about you already see it, like the
Yeah.
creative that you can make. And I've gotten in trouble in the past for just being like, "Oh, we'll fit your budget. Like we'll make it happen." So I've gotten better about being like, "Nope, this is the price." But it makes
Yeah.
business more fun that way when you're genuinely curious to like figure out a solution for the people that you're working with.
Totally, 100%. Well, Tatum, thank you so much for talking to me. I
Yeah,
feel
thanks
like I
for
know
having me.
you, even though I've only talked to you in total maybe an hour and 15 minutes and some emails. But
Isn't that great?
I think that's just how creatives are. It's like
I would agree.
I think there's like this little thread that all of us creatives get that we all pull at differently. And when
Yeah.
you can talk that kind of language with another creative, it's like, oh, you're in the same ship as me.
Yeah.
We're just doing different things, but we're in the same boat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. That's the best. Well, thank you
Yeah.
so much for having
Yep.
me.
You're welcome. Thanks again.